boys and girls of grade 5. Welcome to our mathematics class. My name is Miss Yolita Brown Phillips. For our lesson today, we will be learning about rounding decimal numbers to the nearest tenths. But before we get into our topic, we will do a little recap. Now, when we round numbers, we change them to a simpler one with the same value. It is an estimate. However, to round numbers correctly, we must follow rules. First, you have to identify the place value you have to round to. A digit's place value is the position within a number, or where it's found on the notation chart. For whole numbers, the smallest place value is the ones place. So the first thing you do, you identify the digit to the right of the place value you are rounding to. Or, as I would say, the number hitting at the back door. If it's 5 or more, you round up. If it's 4 or less, you round down. So let's quickly look at this whole number. The whole number 36, we would like to round it to the nearest tens. So let's identify the place value we are rounding to, tens. Let's identify the number to the right of that place value, or the number that is hitting on the back door. The number that is to the right of that place value is 6. Is 6 more than 5, or is 6 less than 5? 6 is more than 5, so we round up. So to round up, we add 1 to the place value and change all the other numbers after it to 0. So 36 rounded to the nearest tens becomes 40 because we added 1 to 3 and got 4, and we changed the 6 that came after the place value to 0. Boys and girls, the same rules apply when rounding decimal numbers to the nearest tenths. When rounding decimal numbers to the nearest tenths, you look at the number in the hundredths place, or the number hitting the back door, because remember, hundredths comes after tenths. If it is 5 or more, add 1 to the tenths and change all the digits after to 0. If the digit is less than 5 or 4 and less, the tenths place remains the same and all other digits after the tenths place becomes 0. Let's quickly look at this example. Round 85.76 to the nearest tenths. What are we rounding to? The nearest tenths. When rounding to the nearest tenths, which place do we look at? We look at the hundredths place. The number in the hundredths place is 6. Is 6 more than 5, or is it less than 5? 6 is more than 5. So we add 1 to the tenths place, and the number in the tenths place is 7. So 1 plus 7 will give us 8. What happens to the other numbers after the tenths place? They all become 0. So 85.76 rounded to the nearest tenths is 85.80. Boys and girls, let's look at another example. Round 45.53 to the nearest tenths. What do we look for when we're rounding to the nearest tenths? We look for the number in the hundredths place, or the number that is hitting at the back door. In this case, the number in the hundredths place is 3. Is 3 more than 5, or is it less than 5? 3 is less than 5. What did the rule say when it's less than 5? We write back the decimal just as it is and change the number in the hundredths place to 0. So 45.53 rounded to the nearest tenths would be 45.50. So boys and girls, now it is your turn to practice what you have learned. Round the decimals below to the nearest tenths. Round the decimals below to the nearest tenths. Take a minute to get this done, boys and girls. Should be finished by now. Let's look at the first one. 84.27. We are rounding to the nearest tenth, so we look at the number in the hundredths position. The number in the hundredths position is 7, and 7 is more than 5. So we add 1 to the tenths place, and that 7 becomes 0. When we add 1 to 2, which is found in the tenths place, our answer is 3. So 84.27 rounded to the nearest tenths is 84.30. I hope that you have that correct, boys and girls. Let's go quickly to the next one. 31.63 rounded to the nearest tenths. Which number is hitting the back door or is in the hundredths position? 3. Is 3 greater than 5 or is it less than 5? 3 is less than 5. And when the number in the hundredths place is less than 5, we write the decimal just as it is, and we change the number in the hundredths place to 0. So 31.63 rounded to the nearest tenths is 31.60. Boys and girls, I hope that you would have gotten both problems correct. So this has brought us to the end of our class for today. But before you leave and before we bring the curtains down, we must have the problem of the day. Today's problem is, Jim is an athlete. He ran 67.392 kilometers of the play field. Round the distance Jim ran to the nearest tenths. Take a minute and do that, boys and girls. You should be finished by now. I am so excited to see what my little problem solvers did today. So the rule says that we must look at the number in the hundredths place if we are rounding to the nearest tenths. What number is in the hundredths place? 9 is in the hundredths place. Is 9 greater than 5 or is it less than 5? 9 is greater than 5. When the number in the hundredths place is greater than 5, we add 1 to the tenths place, and all the other numbers after the tenths place becomes 0. So 67.392 rounded to the nearest tenths is 67.4 kilometers. Boys and girls, you have done excellent today. I want you to always remember that you are braver than you think you are, and you are smarter than you think you are. Bye, boys and girls. See you next time.